That ends the hearing on Senate Bill 285. Next, we're going to
just got
Senate
real,
Bill
dog.
214, Cannabis Sale and
So
Distribution.
today they went back to session
I
on
have
the
Thomas
3
Ackers
cannabis
from the
bills, 3 of the
ATCC.
5.
Can I
And
bring Andrew Garrison up with you, Thomas?
you got to submit your
Andrew,
testimony. They got
Yes,
to
Madam
hear
Chair.
who was for it and against
Thank
the
you.
bill on both sides. I'm not going to bore y'all with the whole video, but I am going to do a quick skim through
Good
recap.
afternoon,
I'm
Chair
going to show
Bible,
y'all
Vice
some
Chair Hayes,
commentary so y'all
members
can
of the
see
Finance Committee. My
for
name is
yourself
Thomas
how this
Ackers,
works, because a
and
lot
I'm
of
the
people don't really
Director
know
of the Legal and
how
Legislative
this shit
Division for
works.
the Alcohol, Tobacco,
And then
and
I'll
Cannabis
kind of
Commission.
like fill
On
in
behalf of the
what's going on
ATCC, I request the Senate
when
Finance
they say
Committee
whatever they
to
say
issue
and
a
whatnot.
favorable report on Senate Bill
So this
214.
first
Senate Bill
portion is going to
214 is a
be
public
one of the
safety and
heads
consumer
of
protection bill.
alcohol,
This bill helps
tobacco,
fulfill the
cannabis
goals of the Cannabis
commission,
Reform Act, which are
and
twofold. One,
one of the
provide an
directors
equitable
of
commercial
the
marketplace where
MCA,
cannabis
which is the
products which have been
Maryland Cannabis
tested and
Administration.
approved
These are the
are
people that's in
available for
charge
sale
of
to Maryland adult
regulating
consumers.
the
Two,
cannabis
to
and
ensure that
alcohol
Marylanders are
industry
informed about what is in
and
the products they are
enforce it.
buying and whether they are
So
intoxicating.
first one
Specifically, Senate Bill 214 would require
is
that
from the
all intoxicating THC
ATCC,
products intended for human consumption,
and the one
whether
on
for
the
sale at licensed or unlicensed
left is from
locations,
the
adhere to the
MCA.
same packaging and labeling requirements as legal cannabis products as stipulated in the Alcoholic Beverages and Cannabis article. Intoxicating THC products that fail to meet packaging and labeling requirements described by this bill would be considered contraband per se, thus allowing the ATCC to seize such products and issue citations for violations of the law. Lastly, this bill authorizes the ATCC to issue citations to persons who sell intoxicating THC products, including Delta 8 and Delta 10, to underage individuals. Just a sidebar, I'd like to take the opportunity to highlight the foresight of the Maryland General Assembly when they distinguish between intoxicating THC products that require licensure to sell and those that did not in the Cannabis Reform Act passed in 2023. As per the law, a Maryland Cannabis Administration license is needed to sell or distribute any product that has
So
more
his
than
main
0.5
gripe
milligrams of
is
THC per serving or
cannabis
more than
sales
2.5 milligrams of
in
THC per package.
unregulated
By defining the standards for
retail
licensure based on the
locations.
concentration of intoxicating
He
THC
wants
levels,
a
the legislature
bill introduced that
prioritized
will
limiting
allow
access to these
his
products only to
department
licensed
to
dispensaries, which are
enforce
required by law to only sell
illicit
such THC
sales in,
products that
let's
have been
say,
tested
tobacco
and
shops,
approved by the MCA
gas
for
stations,
as safe for sale to adult
liquor
consumers in the
stores,
state of Maryland.
et cetera, because
Every
they feel
day,
as though
new THC products and variations are marketed to
the
stores to
black market
capitalize on consumer
is
demand for cannabis products. But
smoke
these
shops,
intoxicating
or
products reside
they feel as though the
outside of the
smoke
licensed
shops are
market
taking
and are
away
not subject to any screening
customers
or approval
and
by the state. This gives
money
these unregulated
from the
products
legal
and
market, and
businesses
they
an
need to have
unfair competitive
the
advantage
grounds to
over
enforce
duly licensed
such,
cannabis businesses, which must
which they
expend
already
time and
do
resources
because they
to
have a
safely and
clear
lawfully test, package, and submit their product concepts to the MCA.
legislation to say
While
what's
the
legal and
ATCC
what's
is
not.
empowered
But
to
they
issue
want it
citations to
to be
sellers when
like,
this is proven, agents can only build such cases by
know,
individually purchasing a
clear
product,
in
sending
writing
it to a
as
contracted
to
laboratory, and waiting for the
who's
issuance of a
who,
lab
and they
report
also want some
detailing
like
the product's
packaging
THC
restrictions,
content.
because if
This
you
analysis
have
currently takes
a
45 days
hemp
or more to be
company, they don't
completed.
want you to be
Even
able
once
to
a
have
lawful and unlawful product is
attractive
confirmed,
packaging
there's no
that the
direct
licensees
mechanism
aren't
in
able to
law
have,
to
because they
remove that
pretty
product
much
from the
have to
store
have
inventory or
bland
order an owner to cease
marketing
sales. To address
on
the
their
gaps in the
packaging.
law,
It
Senate
has
Bill
like a blank
214 will do the
package with
following.
just the name.
1.
They
Require
can't
products
have
that
like any
contain any
flair to
THC
it.
to
They
meet
can have like
advertising and
Ziggy
labeling
lines,
standards
but there's
already
like no
codified in law and
animation,
applicable to
nothing that's
current
attractive to
MCA
children.
licensees. 2. Allow agents to rely on statements made on packages as prima facie evidence, think truth in labeling, and take enforcement action immediately upon observing a product in an unlicensed store which is advertised as having contents that are greater than allowed under Maryland law. 3, establish that displaying products for sale in a commercial business is rebuttable evidence of sale of those products for the purposes of a licensing-related offense. This already follows a model that's used in alcohol enforcement. And 4, authorize the ATCC to issue citations to persons who sell intoxicating THC products, including Delta 8 and Delta 10, to underage individuals by allowing them to enforce the provisions of Criminal Law Article 10108. 2 matters I would like to highlight here. The bill does nothing to undo the injunction imposed by the Washington County Circuit Court in October of 2023 that prohibits the ATCC from taking enforcement action against stores who lawfully sold hemp-derived intoxicating THC products prior to July 1st, 2023. Individuals, businesses who sold these products under the protection of the injunction will still be protected while it is in place. In addition, it should be noted here that the ATCC reached out to Kurt McCauley and Michael Howard of the Mid-Atlantic Petroleum Distributors Association to discuss the bill with them. As of this writing, we're informed that they have
There
not
you go.
received any pushback from their members on this bill.
Authorize
In
the
closing, the ATCC
ATCC
believes these practical enforcement tools created by Senate Bill 214 will protect Maryland
citation,
consumers and
seizures,
prevent them from being misled or confused when seeking safe and legal cannabis,
misdemeanor
while ensuring that
charges
access to these products by
for
minors
people
is
who
strictly
clearly
enforced. For those
identify
reasons, I
as a
respectfully request
non-licensee
a
with a
favorable report on Senate Bill
attractive or
214,
flary
and I'm
type
available for your questions.
marketing as you might see at a gas station.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Finance Committee, Andrew Garrison with the Maryland Cannabis Administration. I also want to thank our colleagues at the ATCC for bringing this bill forward and their partnership throughout the enforcement of the cannabis industry here in Maryland.
A lot of these
we think
these
as well this is an
bills,
important bill, and
this is
that
what I
is
really
child
want y'all to understand. A lot of these
protective
bills and
labeling.
stuff that they're saying is
Any sort of tamper
contradictory
evidence
to what
and
they
items on the
know
label
or
that
believe
would
or wanna
potentially appeal to
portray.
children.
Like, it's
That is
like
stuff that
real
we don't currently allow
contradictory.
in the license.
So they'll say
in the license market.
they wanna
and
be
putting
able
this bill
to
forward, make sure that they can use those same
enforce
tools
something
on
that's
the
already
unlicensed
kind
side
of
of the
involved for
market.
them to enforce. They
With that,
clearly
I'm
say that
again
you
urging
can't sell
support for this bill and
THC
happy to take
products
any
unless you're a
questions.
licensee. So why should the
Thank you, Andrew.
packaging
Nice to see you.
of
Thomas, thank you for
a
being
type
here.
of
Don't have any
product
questions for, Senator Miles.
differentiate what's in the bag?
Thank
You
you,
know what I'm
Madam
saying?
Chair. Very quickly, thanks for coming by the office to discuss this prior to the hearing.
want the
But what
authority
is
to be
the
able to move
prevalence
forward on things.
for this situation where these products are being sold illicitly? How prevalent is it? Is this just here, there, or what's the magnitude? How would you describe what's on the streets right now?
Senator, thank you very much for the question.
all
Maryland
of this
is
stuff is
actually
already
pretty
in the bill.
unique in
Tamper-proof,
that we're seeing a lot of these products sold in tobacco
not being
product
able to
stores.
market it
So
to
there
children,
are
not being able to
and
use cartoons
some
and
retail
things of that
alcoholic
nature.
beverage
All that stuff
establishments.
is
So
already
what
in
we've seen
the
is
cannabis
if you
bill, and you'll
take
see
the
that as
number,
a
there are
recurring
about
theme
6,200 approximately tobacco
in this,
licensed establishments. There are about 8,000 retail
committee
alcoholic
hearing.
beverage establishments. So
The
there are a
Senate
number
hearing
of
is-
targets out there that are selling these products. And so when we go in and we identify these products, we see them change constantly. Maryland is unique in that when we went actually out to Washington and Oregon, they said, you really don't want to cross-train your agents because we only see cannabis in Washington and Oregon in standalone stores. Maryland is unique. We're seeing it really predominantly in the tobacco stores. So that's where really the population for these these products are living.
Yeah, thank you. You answered my question. It was as much for this bill as another bill we're going to hear later.
a lot of their research
dealing
is
with
like
consumption licenses and things like that. But the
misinformation
fact of the matter is, this is a real problem. So thank you for bringing it up.
information
And it's
that
not
specifically backs a narrative that
something
they
that just, it's a nuance. I mean,
particularly
it's a real
want
issue.
to
But thank you very much.
push.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator, thank you for your question. I don't see any other
Alcohol
questions.
and cannabis
one
can't be
unfavorable.
marketed or
If you'll
consumed in the same place.
Step back
It
and
has
let
to
the
be
unfavorable come to the table,
cannabis
please.
and
Thank you.
beer
And
or
we'll have you
wine,
back up for the next
or
one.
it has to be alcohol by itself. They can't mix and match. So putting the same
with normal
branch of
edibles.
government over top of them is kind of like a conundrum in
models
itself, 'cause they're not
proposed
supposed
of-
to mingle, but you got one branch looking over
provision
everything,
in it where it
and they don't
becomes
necessarily
effective
know how to
upon
focus on one.
whatever
Nobody knows how
federal
to deal with,
legalization
market,
standards you
regulate,
use,
or
but
legislate
overall I would
cannabis.
submit that
They
this
just
can
know
wait. Thank
how
you, Madam
much
Chair.
money someone else made off of it, and they'll continue
Testing
to
should a
market
wholesaler be
like,
doing?
well, you know, we can make
I
this much
should
money
already
off
be
of it,
tested.
or this state made that much money off of it, and last month we made
Thank
this
you. I
much
don't
money
see any
off of it.
questions. Thank you
And
for your
you'll see the
testimony.
faces of the
We have a
different
favorable with
chair
amendment, Mr.
members
Carr.
and senators
Thank you. I don't see any questions.
correlate with
by
their
providing them with centralized, safe storage,
emotional reaction to
find a new wholesale license.
those figures.
They have more to fear from the
this
existing
is one of the-
licensees who have just had all of their capital debt paid off because of the profits they're making right now. You want to raise taxes to support more enforcement.
The existing dispensaries are
I
doing
suggest
fine, and the
there's
new
no need for
dispensaries are
enforcement
gonna be
right
competing
now.
against
Wait
them.
another year.
Please vote no. Thank you very much.
The
Well,
existing
this the good
dispensaries are
man,
doing
Rusty. He
fine,
was,
and the new dispensaries are going to be competing against them. Please
was
vote no.
against
Thank you
it.
very much.
and I
Thank you
want
for your
y'all to
testimony.
kind of
Do I have
see
any
the
questions for
power
Mr.
of
Carr?
like voicing your opinion.
Thank you very much. We see
Internally
also you gave us written
unified
testimony. Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Yes.
stance, because that's what
That
they be
ends the
doing.
hearing on
And a
Senate
lot
Bill
of stuff they be
214. Now we have Senate Bill
saying, they be doing the
221.
opposite.
Morgan
So
Smith
like
from the
they
Maryland
trying to
Cannabis
control
Administration, I
all of
think
these
is here.
things, but this next bill shows how greedy they actually are in real time.
Chair Vital, Vice Chair Hayes, and
Watch this.
And Andrew, you're here to answer questions?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chair Vital, Vice Chair Hayes, and members of the Senate Finance Committee. I'm Morgan Smith, a senior policy analyst at the MCA, and I'm joined here by Andrew Garrison, my boss. You have our written testimony. Senate Bill 221 is one of our departmental requests from the MCA to establish and define a new wholesale license category. This bill will establish fees associated with application and licensure, authorize the administration to award up to 15 licenses in this category, and require the administration to include this license type in forthcoming licensing rounds. This framework is largely forward-looking. The MCA believes that the early adoption of wholesale licenses could position Maryland as a strategic hub for cannabis distribution in a national market, should federal rescheduling occur. In the near term, wholesale licenses could be utilized to support current micro businesses by providing them with centralized, safe storage and inventory management. This would facilitate partnerships, reduce costs, and increase operational efficiency as these businesses enter the cannabis market. The creation of a wholesale license category through SB 221 positions the MCA and the state of Maryland to be better prepared for future interstate commerce, and early establishment has the potential to provide long-term advantages. For these reasons, the MCA supports this piece of legislation and requests a favorable report from the committee. Thank you for your time, and we welcome any
They're
questions.
not making good on their promises for social
Thank you.
equity applicants. There are very few, if any, social equity applicants close to the finish line from the first round. They can't open the second round until the first round has up and running licensees. They have to be established, and then they can say how many licenses are available for the second round. They don't have any type of real logical legislation for consumption lounge, which is supposed to be in the second round, which is no time soon, because as you can see, and they're already trying to slide in a wholesale license to be able to sell interstate and make themselves a hub for interstate commerce, when that's not even on the table with the feds right now. Regardless of what they say, they campaign on it every 4 years. We have yet to see federal regulation, legalization, but they're trying to put a license on it already. So I'm not going to bore y'all with
We have a favorable amendment, Mr. Carr.
a lot of this testimony.
And we respect an unfavorable.
I'll just let you know that for the most part, there's three sides. You have the senators, the legislators who have to sign off on this stuff that don't know anything about anything. They have no clue of what's going on. All of this stuff is foreign. As far as they know, we legalized it in 2023. Why are we still talking about new aspects of stuff? I don't really see no results from what we did the first time, right? And they weren't really for it the first time. We voted for it. They didn't, right? And then you have the lobbyists and the licensees who are trying to push for consolidation and control. And then you have, you know, the legacy side and the consumer, who everybody else is banking on their dollar. So they're talking about y'all as the people who are giving them these big returns, so to speak, and they're not asking for your input. They're telling the legislators what they think is a good idea, how they think it should go, who should be able to participate, and they're using things like social equity as a low-hanging fruit, so to speak, to say like, we doing this for them, you know, they should get first dibs. But there are no social equity applicants that made it through. You have social equity lawsuit recipients from the medical round, and most of them still aren't even open. That's from like 2019. But I'm gonna go through some more of these testimonies for y'all. You'll be surprised to see a few different people you may or may not be familiar with.
Until we wanted to find some, for lack of better words, reinvestment.
He was asking about the money.
Structured, the tax increase is structured in the PERFA. The funds that are enumerated in the original.
He's asking about the money.
Get the benefit.
They wrote into
they take 60% of the
the
revenue.
Cannabis Act that they had to put a certain percentage of the proceeds from this booming industry that they created into the neighborhoods and the areas that was affected most by it. Well, if you live in one of those neighborhoods, let me know how that look right now. If they done threw any money your direction, you know what I'm saying? That's one. Well, that's what he was asking about. And the other side of that is the people that were affected by it the most are not really allowed to participate in the market that they're making all of this money from, because it wasn't a fair social equity round, and a lot of the zip codes that they used to qualify were not areas that were impoverished by. And the people that were able to submit an application weren't necessarily people that were affected by. You see what I'm saying? But that's another scenario for another day.
As you outlined, and the other 40%.
That's what he's talking
would go
about.
to the general fund.
He was just clarifying, like,
Then is that affected by any of these two things?
No, sir.
Language that's a problem.
No, sir.
Yeah, I just read the issue.
that's all he was concerned about, was like, is y'all just, if we open up another license that doesn't make sense
Affected.
and they got to pay taxes, or their taxes are different, is that going to affect how much money we get off the taxes for the
For lack of better words.
portion that I proposed, which was the reinvestment fund, which is not a bad thing, but I just, like I said, let me see it. So where's the money being reinvested? Because I keep hearing them say how much they've made, We made this much money this year, but we don't know where the money's going. We also had a fund that was supposed to be available to help social equity applicants get started, a startup fund that was depleted by current licensees, and the social equity licensees only got like $10,000, $15,000 a piece, and they were promised up to $1 million a piece to start. So that's another aspect, but that's another video as well.
Thank you again. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Andrew Garrison here to present our department's proposal for an on-site consumption legislation. What this does is it proposes a path forward on a smoke-free model for consumption lounges. I think likely today or within your RIN package, you probably have
Hold on, I gotta back this up
models proposed of what a
because I want
consumption
y'all to hear
The
something.
general fund.
Right. And
That
Garrison here to present our department.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Good afternoon again, Madam.
This is on-site consumption establishment and cannabis events. and
Watch this.
Mr. Garrison is going to present.
listen.
Interesting, Mr. Garrison, this is the administration bill and you're favorable with amendment.
I caught a little drafty here. No, sorry,
The administration sent the bill, and then they came to contest their own bill.
Thank you again. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Andrew Garrison here to present our department's proposal for an on-site consumption legislation. What this does is it proposes a path forward on a smoke-free model for consumption lounges. I think likely today or within your.
Yes, you heard that right. A smoke-free model for a consumption lounge. How, Sway? A smoke-free consumption lounge.
Your RIN package, you probably have other models proposed of what a consumption license looks like. This for us is
is a starting point in this conversation because these licenses are authorized for us in the second round. That is something that we anticipate potentially need to move forward with quite soon. And we want to be able to ensure that those folks who are applying have a clear vision or a clear path and opportunity to know what this business
Can't
model
give
looks
them a
like.
clear path if y'all don't have a clear path, because y'all don't know what y'all talking about.
This legislation as well is a section on cannabis events. This is something where, again, we're starting to see as the industry grows and develops, more interest and activity around cannabis events. And so also in this proposal in front of you are some guardrails and frameworks around those events that really set up a three-tiered system. One that would be a kind of a cannabis-friendly event.
Now I want to stop it right here. As we said, we're starting to notice a gained interest in these types of events. This is not a new renewed gained interest. This is an interest that has been there because there's always been culture events. And then they're trying to restrict culture events or mimic them. Let's put it like that. They're trying to mimic the culture events in the legal recreational market, right? And they're trying to put framework in place that makes it look like they know what they're doing, but they don't. As the next speaker will kind of allude to in a sense by saying that this bill is for, she's from the Office of Social Equity, he's from the MCA. So the MCA is trying to mimic culture events, and then she's gonna argue to include legacy players in that model. So I'll just let y'all hear it.
Another that would focus on beverages as a new market opportunity, particularly as we are having new licenses come on board. What we believe this will do is signal a place where the industry can continue to grow and develop with these beverages. And then thirdly, a vendor permitting space that would authorize the new licensees to have a sort of more direct consumer access there to be able to build their brand. The amendment that I did mention is on the consumption site piece of the bill, the first few pages. And there we propose that the on-site consumption licensees could effectively make their own house edible of sorts. We still want that to be subject to testing, tracing, any sort of product and labeling piece of it, having it sent back up to the laboratory. And so we're clarifying that by saying they have to be producing what we define in the bill as a single serve product. So just something that they could sell at their establishment, not a broader authorization to do processing. I'm also joined here by Audrey Johnson, the Executive Director of the Office of Social Equity, who's going to highlight some of the social considerations we put into the legislation.
All right, let's stop it right there before she even get into her bag, and I gotta get into my bag to rebuttal their bag. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, they're trying to portray it as if they know what they're doing, and they're trying to put a model together to show people that don't know what they're doing, what to do, but none of them know what the fuck they're doing. Because they proposed a bill for a consumption lounge that doesn't allow consumption. Just harp on that for a second. And then they also introduced in that same bill that consumption lounge license holder can only serve single servings. And at this consumption lounge that you're not allowed to consume at, you're not allowed to bring your own consumables. So why would you go? Why would you go to a location that you more than likely have to pay to get in because he got to make some money, that you can't bring your own flower in, you can't bring your own product in if you just want to come and hang out, and you got to keep buying J after J after J after J. And some of the Senate members brought up that they feel like, they feel like blunts or shots. They feel like if you hit a J, you're going to be stumbling down the sidewalk. They already, fearmonger. They have no understanding of how cannabis works. And you can watch this for yourself. They'll allude it. They're not going to allude it. They'll say it flat out. I'm not going to play all of that. But I'm going to let y'all hear what she got to say.
You are Audrey Johnson.
And then we'll fast forward to some other testimony, and then I'll wrap it up because I don't want to really drag this out. I just want to give y'all the gist of
I am Audrey Johnson.
the playing field. You know what I'm saying?
Social equity. I have also submitted written testimony, which I'm sure you all have reviewed. I want to take an opportunity to speak with you today. Senate Bill 215 is
'Cause they
important
they
step
really
to
don't know what the hell they be doing, bro.
industry remains equitable, well-regulated, and accessible to those who have historically been left out of this market. I want to highlight a few things. Expanding economic opportunity for social equity licensees. This bill prioritizes social equity applicants, giving them the first opportunity to establish on-site consumption businesses and host cannabis events. By doing so, it helps level the playing field and ensures that those most impacted by past cannabis prohibition have a real chance to succeed in the industry. It also creates a clear regulatory pathway for legacy event planners to transition into this licensed market. Two, public health and consumer safety. Senate Bill 215 takes a thoughtful approach by restricting on-site consumption to edible cannabis products, addressing concerns about secondhand smoke. That said, we acknowledge that smoking remains the most common method of consumption, and we look forward to working on policies that provide safe and legal spaces for all cannabis consumers. The bill also ensures that consumers receive proper education about cannabis consumption, reinforcing responsible use. Third is the local control and community input. This legislation respects the jurisdictions by allowing them to opt in, set zoning requirements, and regulate hours of operation for on-site consumption businesses. This balance is critical to fostering public trust while expanding economic opportunities. And then lastly, positioning Maryland as a national leader. 12 other states have implemented on-site consumption models, but Maryland has the chance to lead with an approach that is both equitable and business friendly. So by refining the
That's enough. I done heard enough of that bullshit. Listen, if y'all want to make Maryland one of the leading models in the cannabis industry, and you will include the legacy players of the cannabis industry, and y'all will stop acting like y'all know what the fuck y'all doing. Cause y'all don't know what the fuck y'all doing, bro. Y'all don't know what the fuck y'all doing. And somebody needs to tell y'all that. Whoever wrote a bill for a consumption lounge that doesn't allow consumption needs to be fired. Straight up. And stop saying that y'all are trying to write stuff to make sure that social equity licensees are included and they get first dibs when y'all don't have any type of start funding or assistance for them to actually get on board, because y'all gave all the money to the current licensee. And the people who are most affected by this aren't even eligible to apply for a social equity license. So they're not even a subject in this conversation. It's like they playing in y'all face. But I just want y'all to see how this process works. What goes on behind the scenes, behind the curtain, so to speak. All of these conversations are concerning the public, but they aren't including the public. Well, they do because they have these open sessions, but the public isn't abreast on how this stuff works. You know what I'm saying? Nobody knows that there's a session on a certain day during a certain period of the year that they finalize all these legislations. Like nobody knows that they go to session between January and April to finalize everything they want to sign off on before the end of the summer to put it in effect. Nobody knows that you have to go submit testimony 2 days before they have the hearing for the topic that you want to be or have input on, so that they can have a swing in the vote, so to speak. Nobody know that shit. Ain't nobody walking around telling nobody that stuff. But you'll see these groups of lobbyists and these organizations that are, they work together. They push their narrative, step for step with each other. But the way it's kind of like the people who are responsible for officiating an industry that they really didn't care for before there was a dollar attached to it is what the public more or less has to deal with. You know what I'm saying? They're asking for things they don't understand how they work. They want the legacy players to come in and show them how to do it, but they don't want to include the legacy players in making the money or having a piece of the pie, so to speak.
these provisions and ensuring
You can fast forward. to
public health side.
this guy right here. And also, I want y'all to note
Which of you is best suited
the
to answer
the delegates, so y'all
some
know who's
questions I
like
have,
against
but
your
please
your
work
your
with the other viewer,
your
feel free
interest
to
or
jump in,
against. The
and,
main,
I will share
he's
with
from
you
Montgomery
that,
County. They
I
had
have
an Anne
for
Arundel
years had my
representative, a
concerns
Howard County
about,
representative. Baltimore guy was the
how
one that was
we
asking about the money.
manage to find mechanisms to put alcohol
He's against everything.
everywhere and anywhere we
He's
can.
against everything. So I'm not gonna make y'all listen to him. He's pretty much a
Subjected to these
a
types
bah
of
humbug
events or licenses
scenario.
because they're still under that framework of the broader cannabis.
But he was more or less asking about uh jurisdictions, license, and public safety, and trying to clarify if there was like multiple permits, so to speak. So they're trying to say for the cannabis events, you got to go through the local jurisdiction to get it approved, but you also got to go through the MCA to get their approval. So that's two permits that you got to get approved from two different jurisdictions before you can actually get your event off the ground. And then you can only partner with uh licensees to sell cannabis products, which would make sense under the legislation, but they're not clarifying exactly what is a cannabis event. And to them, a cannabis event is any event that has cannabis, any event that's going to have cannabis consumption, any event that's going to have cannabis flower, any event that's going any event that has cannabis is a cannabis event. So it's like, it's just more of, I don't know what the fuck y'all doing.
To be clear,
Yeah, so
is
we're going to slide through here a little bit.
if we talk about vape products or
It's just more him scolding them about not wanting no
posture might be in future sessions.
cannabis or anything. He looked like he need to
It'll be up to the locals,
the joint.
and sometimes we trust the locals, sometimes we don't.
But
trust
he
the
did
locals.
make sense on this part where he was saying like y'all are asking for
Madam Chair, I do have various.
two things that don't make sense. It's like y'all saying, yeah, we're gonna let the locals handle if they can have the events there, but they still gotta go through us. And he's like, well, that's two permits. They gotta get the locals to approve it. Then they got to get y'all to approve it. And y'all have previously come in here and said that the locals have been zoning out any type of cannabis business, which is very much true. People are still going through that with the legislation as is for the social equity licensees that say they can't zone out the new licensees. They're still doing it. So he makes a lot of sense in this point. In this instance, I give him his it makes sense. He's like, y'all not making sense. Y'all saying that they be zoning motherfuckers out, but now you want to trust them to zone people in? That don't make sense.
About this particular legislation, but I very much appreciate your candid answer, so thank you.
And you gotta respect him for being like who he is. He not one of them that's gonna act like he's with it because it make money, which is most of them. They like, well, we with it now because it make money. He like, I'm all for public safety and soberness. I ain't with that shit. You gotta respect.
How do you, with hemp-derived THC, how's that regulated?
Under the provisions.
And this was more of like, they don't know what the fuck they talking about. Hemp produces CBD. Cannabis produces THC. And they're talking about it as if they're the same thing. They're talking about
THC product.
THCA,
Dispensary license.
which is in cannabis, not hemp.
Section.
Hemp doesn't have THC, it has CBD. That's why it's a non-intoxicant. But they wouldn't know that because they don't know what the fuck they talking about anyway. All right.
In cannabis laws, is that a light penalty?
There's penalties associated with having said event.
Have the product on site.
And he was asking about if the vendor has to pay $2,000 to or whatever the fee is, and nobody can consume, he was like, would they be able to like have samples like you would go to a cigar lounge or something? Like none of this stuff makes sense, bro. more or less, they were just asking questions because they did not understand why these bills were in front of them. And they also
Look at nearby localities like DC.
didn't know why
their tax revenue.
they were written the way they were written. But
So I think I have
this gonna be the last one I'm gonna show y'all.
six.
And then do a quick little recap, and then I'll let y'all take from it what you will, so to speak.
Wonder if someone didn't hear the name called. Queen Adesu, Caroline Phillips, Carrington Anderson, Queen Black, Ashley Bagwell, Joe Bryce. Last call. Okay, so let's start with the person on my left and just go right down the line. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Vital and members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Caroline Phillips, and I am the owner and operator of the National Cannabis Festival, the largest ticketed cannabis event in the United States, and an event that welcomes more than 30,000 attendees each year. It is important for me to point out that NCF has been taking place for 10 years in Washington, D.C., without a single arrest or incident of violence. You should be in receipt of a white paper and letter delivered by myself and my colleague, Queen Adesu, in advance of this hearing.
Sent them a package.
To express my support for the spirit of SB0215.
Well, thank you package, huh?
Is a critical step to creating thriving, sustainable business models. But I would like to offer recommendations to make safer and strengthen the regulations in this bill and help eradicate unregulated, untested cannabis at live events. While headed in the right direction, this bill leaves revenue on the table and the door open to the unregulated market by not including a model that allows inhalable cannabis flower, which is far and beyond the most popular way for Maryland adults and patients to consume. Cannabis flower and vape sales make up 88% of Maryland's cannabis retail, or $342 million in a 6-month period, compared to edibles and drinks, which represent 12%, or $71
Saw
million.
that money on there. She started talking about the monies.
Has been present at live outdoor events. And by not including cannabis flower and vapes, this bill encourages the continued distribution of untested, unregulated products and a loss in tax revenue for the state. When properly regulated with harm reduction and public health in mind, the presence of inhalable cannabis at live events can be restricted to cordoned off areas with product potency and quantity limits, and where appropriate, consumption can be restricted to areas behind secured fences, well away from buildings, and in areas where only folks that choose to be in the presence of smoke will be impacted. Not including cannabis flower, but including drinks and edibles creates problems for venue operators and also leaves the door wide open to unregulated sales.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the chance to weigh in on SB0215. My name is Queen.
I almost clutched my pearls when I say this shit earlier, bro. But I ain't gonna, So look.
It's important to note that my recommendation here is focused on outdoor.
To keep it real brief and sweet, they were all for the bill. And they were only lobbying for the allowance of consumption of combustibles at these events. They are not against anything as written other than that. That's what they were lobbying for. Their whole
can get a registration, purchase products from a licensee, sell them directly to consumers, presumably through their own staff. Then you have a scenario where you have an event where they partner with a vendor, a licensee, who comes on site and sets up what I will call a pop-up shop to sell products to consumers. Dispensaries and dispensary agents have a lot of experience and have been trained to talk to consumers about products, to answer questions about products, to talk about potency, to recognize intoxication. This is important for consumers, but certainly for first-time cannabis users. And so we have concerns where non-licensees are on-site selling products, and so we would respectfully request a change made to that provision. Thank you, Madam Chair.
They just want
Again, Carrington.
Good to see you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
consumption
Really seems
to
to be
be
more
allowed.
cannabis events. And I guess what I'm wondering is if Mako's taken a position as far as if there are, you know, what we just talked about before with on-site consumption type bars or cannabis bars, like how is that regulation going to happen? I ask because I'm more so thinking in the context, we obviously deal a lot with our county liquor board and handling, you know, fees and how one-day licenses are held just for alcohol. And also lots of issues that come up regarding the quantity of licenses that are issued just for alcohol license. Or, yeah, talk later about that. Thank you. Thank you, Carrington. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they just worried about the money, dog.
On this issue,
He don't want nothing,
give them
and
Or is it just saying that as long as whatever local
he's
jurisdiction,
just worried about the money.
they have to be in compliance with all of those local rules. That,
But he is concerned about the permits,
Cannabis flower.
and
It sounds like it's part of.
call you back, bro.
Plant, and which people do it.
So actually, as defined by the state of Maryland,
And
cannabis flower, what's sold in retail stores is the buds of the cannabis plant that people will break down at home to inhale. Also included in that inhale
so
is, just for numbers' sake, are
the thing that
vapes.
got their attention was like, what makes the money? What makes the money? And she told him that 70% of the sales,
Thank you.
70% of the sales, they said they made 300 million the last quarter. I think it was 800 for Washington and Arundel and Howard County. That's y'all, man.
So right now in the state of Maryland, we have social equity operators that are
Look,
struggling
look,
to
look.
create sustainable business models. By allowing
Hey.
them access to these live
Oh.
events, we can provide them with high volume, high revenue opportunities multiple times a month potentially when and where appropriate. So outdoor age-gated events wherein they will be able to bring in revenue without having to close down their brick and mortar shops. This opportunity will
Look at
then
his
trickle
face, bro.
down to cultivators and manufacturers industry-wide, and of course beyond that to create a broader economic impact in the state.
And then,
Look.
this may require some follow-up with the committee, but are you able to share some of the sales data for places like the festival in DC with the committee so that we understand the economic impact?
Yes, we put together a revenue projection model for a 2-day, 15,000 person live event. If this wasn't already sent to you, we'll make sure that it's distributed.
Yeah.
But we would be
They
looking
got
at
they got the email.
spend per adult in the space. We're looking at about 60% of adults attending an event, deciding to indulge in any sort of cannabis consumption. So we're looking at potentially $870,000 in revenue for one single
Look at his
2-day
face. Look.
All right, thank you.
All right, bet.
No
No more questions.
Thank you very much.
870. How often can we do it? How often? All right, look, and just, you know, I'm gonna let y'all take from this what y'all will, bro. I would just say, like, make your voice known. Cause that money they talking about is your money. So how do you feel about it? How do you feel about them making major plays to set up a nice little meal off your bucks? They talking about y'all like y'all food, but you know, they're not pushing for, they're mentioning social equity, but they're not really pushing for social equity. But we'll see. As it stands right now, the powers that be know nothing of what these peoples is talking about, which confirms that this was an inside play within, you know, you know, that was trying to put some framework together to like isolate some stuff or mimic some stuff that they didn't understand, and it showed because of the way they wrote it. And when they presented it, it didn't make sense. So now everybody's confused. So they're gonna have to go back, rework, relook at this thing. They're gonna bring it back in February. They're gonna tweak it, and they're trying to make it a little bit more clear. So contact your people, let them know how you feel, make your voice heard. That's it. It's the rap report. I'm out.